It's the Brad and John Show.
The Brad and John Show for Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. This is the C block, the Charlie block, which means we started it right around 7:40, but we're late this morning, 7:45. Okay, John, yesterday, you hear these things sometimes. There was it Elizabeth Warren or somebody came out and said, was it Chuck Schumer, one of the Democrats, that the reason that plane crashed in Canada was because of Trump. Did you?
I saw that. I thought that was a very unique positioning of it. But I didn't get the logic here. I saw the headline, but I don't follow that logic. Why is it Trump's fault?
Well, the problem is there is no logic because of the fact that, first off, it was operating in Canadian airspace, being controlled by Canadian air traffic controllers at a Canadian airport. But they said, yeah, but the plane probably had bad maintenance in the United States because it's registered in the United States, and that's because we don't have Pete Buttigieg anymore.
I see. There we go. Okay.
I mean, how much of a stretch is it that, and also there's another line that people are saying, okay, since Pete Buttigieg is no longer the FAA head guy, we've had three bad plane crashes. Three bad plane crashes. We had the one in D.C. a couple days after Trump was inaugurated, where the helicopter hit the commuter plane come into Reagan. Then we had the plane, the medical ambulance, air ambulance that crashed horrifically in Philadelphia, and now we've got this plane that landed in Canada, and it's all the Americans' fault. It's all because we don't have Pete Buttigieg anymore. The interesting thing about this is that Mr. Duffy, who is the new Department of Transportation chairperson, he's essentially saying, look, there needs to be a rework of the air traffic control system. And I'm not as good as this as I used to. I used to know it much better when I was actually still flying. And I did know, matter of fact, one of my sons, I think it was my son Blake, his best friend's father was an ATC guy out in Lambert. And we were in Cub Scouts together, and I'd sit and talk with him sometimes about this. The system is very old and antiquated. If you've ever seen the way it works, it's pretty crazy about how the system works. I mean, it's very, very old. And Duffy has come out and said, look, we're going to make this the best air traffic control system in the world. And we're not only going to do that, but we're going to hire the best and the brightest. Now, what subtext is he sending when he's saying that, John? What is he saying?
So I don't know. What's the answer to that, Brad?
No DEI. He's saying...
Yeah, and so why don't... I'm sorry to interrupt, but as many people have asked, have we gotten any demographic information on the pilots that were involved in these incidents?
Well, the problem you have, and I shouldn't say a problem, and once again, I'm not the expert on this. I know enough to be dangerous. You have different classes of aircraft, commercial aircraft, and the requirements that for the pilots who are flying, like for Southwest and United and companies like that, is much more stringent than the regional carriers. And matter of fact, as you work your way up as a pilot, if you ultimately want to hit the nirvana spot, which is working for one of the biggies like Southwest or United or American, you work your way up. And there's a lot of people right now in general aviation, which means, guys flying Cessna 152s. The reason there are a lot of general aviation accidents over the last several years is because all these young people, and not necessarily not so young people, are trying to get hours, because you have to have X amount of hours. And before you even are considered to be a pilot who could get what they call their ATP, their airport transport pilot license, which is like the guys flying the biggies, you have to get a minimum of 1,500 hours. But that's for the biggies. For the regionals, it's not that much. And my former brother-in-law, who unfortunately was a pilot, a commercial pilot, who was killed in an accident back in 1993, did this exact same thing. He got his pilot's license, started renting a plane, and just would fly on the weekends just to rack up hours. And then he started doing things like he had friends of his that worked for various freight companies, and he would talk to them, hey, can I fly, jump seat with you, and can I get some stick time? Okay, fine. And they would start racking this up because you have to get the hours. And the regulations are different. Now, if you watch the video, it looks like either the plane came in too hard or actually the thing that caught the plane, because a lot of people are going like, how did the plane end up upside down? It looks like the right wing landing gear collapsed. So the plane, when it hit the runway, the right wing gear collapsed, and the plane rolled to the right, which sheared off the wing, and that's how the plane got upside down. The amazing thing about it is, if you watch the video, there's a couple videos of people out there, dash cams, the plane caught on fire. And I don't know if a lot of people knew that or not. The plane was on fire, and you started hearing some of the people who were in the plane, who now they've been interviewed. You're sitting upside down in your seatbelt, okay? How do you get out of that, John? Think about that for a minute.
I don't know. I mean, how did they get out of it?
You release your seatbelt and you crash your head onto what used to be the ceiling is now the floor, so to speak. So in other words,
my God.
Yeah, so you're and on those smaller planes, it's not, since the fuselage is not that big, you don't fall like 3 feet or something like that. But still, you fall on your head. And the guy talked about that there were some people that could not do that or wouldn't do it, and some of the passengers went around in the plane helping other people. They would hold somebody by the shoulders, and somebody else would release the seatbelt, and then they'd get them out. Older people, stuff like that. Guys like me, I'd have to have 14 guys, help me. Can you release my seatbelt now? Can I hit my?
Yeah. Or actually, what you could do if every plane was equipped with a light alert, a life alert at every seat, and an AM radio, you could press a button, and then you could listen for local updates from FEMA.
No, this was in Canada, so there's no FEMA.
Oh, okay, good point.
Right, there's no FEMA.
You could listen to Drake music from Canada.
Or you could watch the replay of the halftime show at the Super Bowl, right? One of those things. Okay. Anyway,
we didn't even touch on. We've never touched on that. I don't mean to divert your plane story, Brad. Go ahead,
John. When I get on a topic, man, I'm laser focused. I never divert. You're talking.
I know,
you're
that's
talking
very
to
true.
the,
By the way, we just got approval from Shelly. She says she wants to hear more about stick time.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because Shelly did send me. She says, I missed this at 7:22. I just saw it. She says, we're talking about dressing. She says, plus, people treat you better when you dress nice, except maybe skinny jeans and pirate shoes. That's Shelly.
Now, she's talking about Claire McCaskill there, right?
Yes. And she says, 3.5 inches is my limit. Oh, OMG. Okay. I think she was talking about heels, John.
Oh, okay. I mean, who knew?
Okay. John says, this is another text. Who's John Combest? I'm fiddling with my AM radio. It's 1982. Okay, John. I get it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm listening to Debbie and David in the morning on WIL 92.3 so I can hear school closings. It's 1988, and we all listen to radio still.
David, I need to get...
I listened to Debbie and David every morning in my childhood, Brad. And when I was explaining this to Offspring, we used to sit around in the morning, and you had to put the TV on because there was no internet, or the radio to get school closings. And I loved listening to Debbie and David, WIL 92.3 every morning.
Your dad must have been a country fan, right?
Yeah, my parents both were, yeah.
Really? Okay. And I don't want to get too much in the weeds on aviation, but here's another story we've talked about. This is a story that came out yesterday. Boeing's new Air Force One delayed until 2029 or later.
That's convenient.
They've been working on this plane. Yeah, that's right, because Trump will be out of office in 2029, right? So they've been working on these. There's actually, I think, 2 of them or 3 of them. They've been working on it for, I think, 10 years now. And see, this goes along with my thing that the Ukrainians have taught. You would think the United States military would look at what's going on in Ukraine and they'd say, okay, we've learned our lesson. But no, they keep making the same mistakes. I've said this before.
Guerrilla warfare, Brad. Give us the guerrilla warfare talk.
Well, not the guerrilla warfare, but in other words...
And drones, right?
Instead of building, $50 billion fighter planes, build, 2,000 drones that you can that you can set up on some kind of like a transport plane or something like that, or like a you can go down to Bass Pro Shop and buy one of those party barges and put like 100 drones on it and and float it down the river to where you want to attack, and then you hit a button and all 100 drones take off at the same time, and and they have an air defense system, and maybe they get 40 or 50 of the drones out of the sky, but they still got 60 of them hit the target. Get what I'm saying? It's.
I get exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Have you suggested that to Boeing?
There's someone listens to the show from time to time who's a big Boeing fan, and I feel sorry for her because the news has not been good for Boeing. And matter of fact, it gets even worse this week. It's funny you should make that up because remember the two astronauts who got stranded at the space station because the Boeing space capsule didn't work right, and they were supposed to come back down, and they've been up there. And it came out, was it yesterday, that supposedly when Biden was in office as president, that after this happened, Elon Musk either directly or indirectly contacted the White House and said, hey, we can send one of our SpaceX capsules and get those people out there right away. And the Biden administration says, no thanks. You don't need that. So now, supposedly, Elon Musk is going to send one of his SpaceX capsules up there and rescue the two people who were supposed to spend, I think, 2 weeks at the space station, and now have been there for 6 months or something like that. And
go ahead.
Can you imagine, like, if you went on one of your business trips, when Monsanto says, John, we need you to spend 2 days on the road, and you end up spending 6 months on the road? I mean, you'd run out of underwear after like day 3, right?
I know. I'd have to. Well, I wouldn't buy underwear at Goodwill, but I'd have to make several Walmart runs for it. Now, you didn't narc around, but your friend that loves Boeing, that's Cori Bush, right? Excuse me, her initials are CB, right?
Yes.
You have a big Boeing fan.
The woman who was elected in North County as U.S. Rep District 1, CD Senate District, or Congressional District 1, whatever they call it, and the largest employer in her congressional district is Boeing, and she wants to close Boeing down because why? They make weapons of mass destruction, and she doesn't like that. Like, okay, let's think about this for a minute.
Hey, we don't need your war machines, Brad. Quote a bunch of hippies.
What phrase is that from? We don't need you war machines. What song is that?
Isn't that Pink Floyd?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm not sure who that is.
I'm almost. The interesting part of that is I'm almost to the point where I want to disown that generation because I was not one of those people. There are people who did not wear bandanas around their heads and go to Woodstock and things like that. I was one of those guys.
Yeah, you were a square. I love that about you, Brad. You were not part of the counterculture. We hate America. We don't want to work. We want to sit around smoking ditch weed. You weren't one of those guys.
And by the way,
you were busting your butt as a curb boy at Steak and Shake. You weren't protesting our good men and women fighting for our country.
I went by my old Steak and Shake the other day, and it makes me sad every time to see that. It's an IHOP now, but that's a whole other story. Okay, you sent me this story, and I don't quite understand why you sent it to me. The flowers in the interstate off in South City. What's the deal on that? Explain that to me.
Yeah, I thought it was just a nice St. Louis public radio story, like in the public interest,
It's some weird story about they planting flowers along 44 in the entrance ramp or something like that, and
and remind me, Brad, if you have it in front of you, who's the university who's involved in this?
UMSL, right?
Oh yeah, so let's see, St. Louis Public Radio and UMSL are teaming up for something, Brad. They're doing something for the greater good. What do you know? Maybe you could harangue somebody for some answers about that. How many pollinators are going to be there? What do you mean, How many butterflies are going to come next year? What do you mean, Somebody knows. Somebody in that room knows. They're going to get screwed on the pollinators.
But, John, I find it fascinating that a lady who has campaigned her entire life as being this incredible investigative reporter, and when she gets assigned a story to do a deep dive, she dips her toe in the water, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, according to you, the maximum length should be 3.5 inches. Here's the thing, Brad. Do you know I have a copy of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch from the day I was born?
Really?
And Joe Manis has a front page story.
No way.
On my mother. Yeah. I mean, the story's not on my mother. I mean, I swear on my mother. So I have a copy of the Post-Dispatch, and it's hilarious. It's from the day I was born. Thanks to Brad Hildebrand, I've learned to not give my birthday over the air because identity thieves could totally recreate my entire likeness, image, and steal my identity. Anyway, but Joe Manis has a front page story. It was some story about, I think some hoodlums stole a car and then they crashed into some poor lady. And it was a crime story. What I loved about the newspaper is back in those days, Brad, you couldn't hack the Post-Dispatch. Some Chinese hackers wouldn't get into the software, because it was laid out in good old, typeface. It wasn't laid out on some computer screen. In my day, we listened to AM radio when there was a disaster.
Yeah, but
And Chris Farley's cousin wasn't running a car company.
They might have snuck into the building and messed up a linotype machine, and then things would have been a mess. You know what I'm saying?
They might have stolen the ink.
Right. Or some guy or some Chinese guy walks in and goes, "Stop the presses! Stop the presses!"
Oh, that's a great accent. And then he said, "No ticky, no washi." What you should read tomorrow, Brad. Let me rephrase that sentence. What I think you would enjoy reading is a story about how the Missouri Department of Conservation had a conversation with a gentleman in southeast Missouri who saved a raccoon. And they said, "Sorry, pal, there's no saving raccoons around here. You can't raise a raccoon as a pet." That story was from, I believe, either the Sikeston Standard Democrat or the Daily American Republican. Maybe we could touch on it tomorrow because it's a unique state of Missouri story.
Why is it a unique state of Missouri story?
Because I wouldn't assume, Brad, that state government would have a problem with someone who lives near the woods taking care of a raccoon.
Well, I still have a problem with the fact that Missouri Department of Conservation is now allowing people to shoot bears when it's our state. Look at our seal. There's 2 bears on there. What that would, and matter of fact, it's funny you should bring this up because of the fact that I heard just this morning on another radio station, they said exactly what. Matter of fact, I'll tell you the story. It was Mark Cox and Kim St. Onge, both former Channel 4 reporters. And they said that, and it's the point I've made many, many, many times. If they did a story about a young baby who was abused by his father or mother or something like that, and maybe, was survived or unfortunately died, they'd get 10 phone calls in the newsroom. But if they did a story about a dog that got abused, the phones would melt. "Oh, how can I help that dog? What can I do for that dog? Can I send some money to the ASPCA? Can I drop by some chuck wagon dog food for that dog? Whose dog is that? Those people that abuse that dog, we need to string them up and shoot them and peel their skin off their bodies. That's what we need to do." Get what I'm saying?
I do. And when we know the real crisis in Animalville, particularly in the Westplex, is people that go out just looking to have a good time to shoot some coyotes, and then they see a stranded radio guy, and then they're stuck giving that guy a ride and pulling his truck out of a ravine. You know what I'm saying?
John,
like you just want to go out and harvest some coyotes, and then you see some whatever Brad is, just laying in a ravine.
Once again, Ryan Lehn, Lehn. Ryan, thank you so much. He runs a company called KN Commercial Refrigeration Incorporated. Ryan is the guy who was out trying to find coyotes like John was making fun of me. When I got stuck at the transmitter side in O'Fallon, and he spent an hour, he didn't have to, he spent an hour pulling me out with his work truck. Matter of fact, he went home, he was driving just his regular SUV, and he went home and got his work truck, which had all his tow gear and stuff like that, and pulled me out. And Ryan,
and because Brad is magnanimous this way, Brad insisted on trying to offer him some sort of payment, and Ryan said, "No, thank you. I will not accept your money, but I will take a few hits from that helium tank back at the studio." And that's how Ryan learned to replace Jennifer Wachitsky doing the weather. So that's when you hear a very high-pitched guy doing the weather now.
The truth
is, it's actually right.
The truth is, he said, "But I will, want to take a few rounds in the ring with that John Combest guy. Because I want to knock some sense into that man's head." That's what he said to me. I go, "Oh, you listen to the show?" "Oh, man, doesn't everybody?" And I thought, interesting. Coyote hunter. We've got coyote hunters that listen.
We said it all today, Brad. We covered a lot of ground today.
Have we solved any problems, John?
I think we solved a lot. And remember, Brad, you don't need to put a period before the @ sign. Who told you that? What kind of a wacky guy told you that? Boomer tweets. Boomer tweets. Boomer tweets.
So, John, let me ask you this as we close out our show. 4 minutes too long. Would you rather have no tweets or boomer tweets?
Boomer tweets all day long, Brad. You know what? You keep hitting the cutoff man this week, Brad. It's impressive. Okay. Last year, it's like the kid on the Little League team. Last year, he just played in the dirt all year. Yeah. And you're like, this kid has no motivation, and now he's hitting the cutoff man.
I'm telling you. Okay, say goodbye, John.
Bye. See you later.